welcome you to Seasoned Citizens Presents. And the topic of our program today is going to be seniors re-entering the workforce. They say that 3/4 of the men who reach age 65 choose to retire, and that 4/5 of the women who are currently working retire before age 65. A large part of the reason for this is that seniors are offered higher pensions if they would retire early. They actually lose benefits if they continue to work past 65 in many instances. With me today is Gary Urban, and he is with Econo Foods here in Muscatine. Gary, I understand that Econo Foods is one of the businesses in the Muscatine community that hires specifically seniors for certain jobs. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what sort of things you look for when you hire seniors, the interview process, the hiring process, and a little bit about what is expected of a senior who re-enters the workforce. According to a recent survey, about 1.1 million seniors, or 13.6% of the population, really wants to go back to work. Why do you specifically hire seniors for some of your jobs?
Well, Sharee, seeing that our business is highly customer service oriented, we have found that seniors typically coming back into the workplace are more open with our customers, not as hesitant to communicate, carry a conversation on with the customer, make them feel welcome in our place of business. We find that the younger employees, while doing a good job, of course, are a little bit hesitant or haven't matured enough yet to be real open with the consumer or the customer coming into our business.
I see, and you figure the friendlier the employees, the more the people will buy.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
There's quite a process, I think, for re-entering the workforce, and possibly today's application process is a little bit different from the first application that people filed years and years ago.
Well, seeing so I'm only 29, I'm really not familiar with the actual job application that was conducted years ago. I guess visiting with other people or people that have applied for jobs, my parents, etc., it said years past the job application wasn't as lengthy, the process wasn't as rigorous perhaps as it may have been years ago. From what I understand, it used to be, yes, if someone was looking for a job, they were referred by a friend came in, met the owner or the manager of this particular business and were hired on the spot. Today's job application is quite a bit different than what it was years ago, I'm sure.
A little more impersonal than it used to be.
Correct.
And so maybe a little more intimidating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A lot of college students who are entering the workforce for the first time, the first thing they do is have a resume printed up so that it tells all the things that they're qualified to do. Is that something that you think that a senior who's re-entering the workforce needs to do?
Well, definitely not, unless you have a senior that's looking for a career-oriented, looking for a career. And what we have found is that we have seniors that are looking for a career, but on a different basis. They're looking for a part-time job, perhaps to get out, meet the public, spend some time with people, get out of the house. And we don't find that a resume is necessary by no means. We feel that all the information that we need to extract or get from the senior can be done in a job interview.
All right. Okay. If a person is interested in going back to work, say in a part-time job, what is the process? What's the best way to start the process?
Well, I guess for us at Econo Foods, the job applications are available at Job Service of Iowa or else also at the store. All they have to do is stop by the store at our service counter and ask for a job application. They can either take the job application home with them, fill it out at home, or else they can stay at the store and fill it out right there at the store. The job application takes approximately 5 minutes to fill out. Basically, the information we're looking for is your name, your address, phone number, where you can be reached, prior experience, prior work experience, and of course, we're looking for your education as well.
All
what
right.
education you have or what background you have that entitles you to do the kind of work you're applying for.
All right. You say that they can either fill it out at the store or they can take it home. Do you recommend one or the other?
I guess for their convenience, they can take it home. It gives them a little more time if they want to think about the responses that they want to put on the job application. However, we just use the job application as a reference point, okay? We do some screening. We take the job applications, look them over, and we probably interview 75% of the people that come in that do apply for a job.
All right.
Okay, so
Okay.
whatever's convenient for them. If they're in a hurry and they know they're not going to be able to get back out to that end of town soon, they go ahead and we'll go ahead and just have them drop it off that day if they'd like to. And if they have questions as well, if it's been a period of time since they filled an application out, our people at our service counter can also help answer some questions for them as well. So it may be convenient for them to do it there.
All right. How about a phone call after they file the application? Is that something that's helpful? They call in maybe a week after they filed the application.
Well, I think that process is still the same as it's been years ago. I know when I got my first job, my parents had told me that once you fill the application out, you keep bugging those people until you are granted an interview. So I filled the application out, and I would stop back at that employer's place of work once a week, it seemed like, or else call back every other day and find out if they're going to be doing some interviewing until they got sick of hearing from me, and they finally granted me an application or an interview. So yeah, we do take phone calls, and it's not that we're getting sick of anyone, but a lot of times it's nice to hear a person's voice over the phone too. So if the application does not look as good as you may think it does, once we hear the person's voice over the telephone, we are more apt to grant them an interview after that.
All right. As far as the interview then, you're the one who sets up the interview and calls for a face-to-face meeting with the person.
Not myself, actually, no. Primarily that's done, we have a person that we call our front-end manager of services, and that person does all the interviewing. She does the initial interview, and then at that time, once that person is close to being hired, or she feels it's someone that is viable to have the job, then at that time either myself or one of my two other assistant managers will also sit on the interview and ask a few questions as well.
All right. Let's say that someone has filled out an application and you have granted them an interview. You've scheduled an interview with them. I want to talk a little bit about how the senior should prepare for the interview. First of all, how should they dress?
Well, I've always been a firm believer in if you're going to be approaching someone for a job, you ought to dress appropriately for the job that you're going to be performing.
Okay.
And in our situation, I guess we'd like to have, if they're going to be coming in for an interview, a woman or a man, just to dress in nice casual dress clothes. A dress is fine if they would like to wear a dress. No need to wear a suit for a gentleman. A tie isn't even necessary. Just something that's casual they can feel comfortable in, and we don't want to make them feel uncomfortable and make them overdressed for that. We do have people that come in blue jeans and T-shirts, and that does not establish a good first impression, and I think any employer will tell you the same thing. I guess we'd like to see that you're concerned enough and you care enough to want this job that you would come in and show us your best or give us a good impression of you.
All right. One thing that you said there stuck out, and that was to dress appropriately for the job you've applied for. They should maybe look at the surroundings, no matter where it is that they're applying for a job, and try to, maybe they could visit ahead of time and see how other employees in the store are dressed.
Right.
Things like that. All right. How about arriving for the interview? Should they be early? Should they be on time? Should they pace around the store? Do they need to feel obligated to buy something before they leave?
No, heavens no. The individual that we have doing the interview at the store, Tammy, does an exceptional job and really extracts a lot of information from the person. It makes them feel very comfortable, puts them at ease when they come in to sit down for an interview. And so Tammy at times can, while she's talking to a person, wants to get a lot of information, so she can tend to run over a little bit at times. Our interviews generally last about a half of an hour.
Okay.
The person that's going to be having the interview, if they arrive 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early, that's fantastic. One thing we certainly do not like to see is if someone is going to have an interview, let's say at 2 o'clock, to show up at 5 after 2 or 10 after 2. Puts us behind schedule. And then, of course, you know what that means, that if they're not reliant enough to show up for a 2 o'clock interview, what may happen in the future. So just be prompt, 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early. Don't feel obligated to buy anything. Just come up and relax, and when you're ready, we'll call for you.
All right. How about preparing mentally for the interview? What sort of questions should a person expect you to ask them if they're going to interview for a job?
Well, typically when the person comes in, most of the information that we try to get is the person's past, what ask them a little bit about themselves, for example, starting with their early years, their formative years, what kind of things they were interested in grade school and high school. If they went to college, what kind of things they were involved in college. Do they enjoy sports? Do they enjoy reading, knitting, walking, fishing? Those kind of the things that they're interested in. Just kind of background of the person. We'd like to know what their strengths are, what they feel their greatest strength is. And we hear a lot of people can tell us what their greatest strength is, what they feel is. And then we also like to find out what their biggest weakness is, that they feel their weakness is. And that way, if we can find out what their weakness is, we have an idea of what areas we may need to work with them on more than what their strengths are. And then also what their strengths are, capitalize on those and put them in an area where we feel that strength will do us the best job. Pretty mentally, I guess, is just think about your past, the things that you've done in the past. Your family. We like to talk a lot about your family. I think that gives us a good background of what your interests are. If you have brothers, sisters, what your children are doing, what your children have done. So we like to get a lot of that kind of information as well.
All right. All right. Establishing a good first impression, you mentioned this a few minutes ago. What sort of things establish a good impression?
Well, like I said before, the way the individual dresses, of course, establishes a first impression. Also, a friendly smile, a waiting smile when you come out to greet that person, a good firm handshake. Those kind of things establish a first impression. Body language establishes a first impression. If they're fidgety, if they're nervous, there's really nothing to be nervous about in any job interview. So, first impression, I guess, basically is the way you dress and facial expressions.
All right.
Okay.
The handshake, they always told me when I was applying for a job to be sure and give a firm handshake because it shows you're confident.
Right, right.
As an employer, then, you ask all these questions. What sort of things are you really looking for?
Well, I guess we're trying to find out, number one, if they're interested in the job, or are they interested in the job for the money, or are they interested in the job because it's actually something they want to do? And we feel that the way they respond to the questions will tell us if and why they want the job, or if they can actually benefit us as a store, and also what we can do for them. I think we can tell a lot from the questions if they are sincere, if they're friendly, how they carry themselves once they leave the interview process, and if they are given a job, what kind of job they're going to do. There's a number of different jobs that the store offers, so once we do the interview process, we can fit the person to a certain job. Okay, if that job that they want is not necessarily open, maybe they're better fitted or better suited for another job. So, for example, a demo clerk that's going to do food demonstrations needs to be certainly outgoing, needs to have some knowledge of preparing food, needs to have some selling ability. A person that may be applying for a job as a floral clerk, of course, may not necessarily need to have all those human relation skills, but will need to have more skills as far as using your hands, knowledge on that particular job.
All right. All right. As far as past experience, we have a lot of seniors who say, well, I was just a housekeeper all my life. I was just a housewife all my life. I was just a farmer all my life. I don't have any job skills. Do these people have skills you're interested in?
Yes, and like I told you before, I think the number one skill that we find that the seniors have is their communication skills. If the communication skills are there and they can get along with the public, get along with the fellow employees that they're going to be working with, we feel with a lot of our jobs, we can take and train that employee to perform the job duty, okay? We don't think that you're ever too old to learn how to do new things. When I first started, I had no idea the first day on the job what I was doing, okay? And I don't feel that a 16-year-old can learn. If a 16-year-old can learn it, or an 18-year-old can learn it, or a 40-year-old can learn it, we feel that a senior citizen will be able to learn that job just as easily as anyone else will.
All right. That's important, I think, to let people know that they're not expected to know what to do the first day they go to work.
Right.
That you do teach them the job.
Depending on what the job is, we typically spend that entire first week working one-on-one with an employee. If a person, for example, is hired to be a stocker, we'll take and work that person one-on-one with another grocery stocker for an entire week, whether it be 25 hours or 30 hours or 40 hours, whatever the employee needs. Okay, that's what we'll go ahead and spend that amount of time with that employee.
Okay, all right. What kind of skills do you find when you ask the seniors, what is your strong point? What sort of things do they mention?
They're hard workers. Okay, they've what you hear a lot from the seniors, or what I hear from Tammy that's doing a lot of interviewing of the seniors, is that they're very, very proud of the work they've performed in the past. They're very conscious of the work they have done. They were very, I guess they took a lot of pride also in the place in which they worked. Also, so they were very, very proud of the work they were doing, but they were also very proud of the where they were working, and they like to talk about their past employers and things they were involved with at work and what they did for X amount of years. We also find that they are very, very proud of their families, whether it be their spouse or their children. They like to do a lot of talking about that, grandchildren, for example. So.
How about their weaknesses then? What do they consider their weaknesses?
Well, I think the biggest fear that they may have is that they're afraid of re-entering the workplace, and like you had said, they're afraid that the skills, they don't have the particular skills needed to perform the job that we have available to them. And that's, I think, the weakness would be fear of coming back into the workplace.
Okay. Do you find that sometimes things they see as a weakness you don't really consider a weakness?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. How about any other comments about the application process or the interview process? Is there anything we've missed? Or?
I don't believe so. The interview, like I said, is short and sweet. We'll let you do. We try to go by a 20-80 rule, and obviously you do too. And in your job here as an interviewer, where we let the interviewee do 80% of the talking, the interviewer do 20%. We'll ask a lot of questions, but once the answers start, we'll ask a lot of whys and probe a little bit and try to find out a little bit more information, or let you do as much talking as possible. So be prepared to talk, okay? And we're glad to listen to you, and we'd love to hear it. It gives us a better rounded view of who you are.
All right.
Okay.
How about phoning after the interview or sending a letter thanking for the interview? Is that something that you consider when you look at the applicant?
Typically we'll phone that individual. We always get in contact with the individual after the interview. We don't, whether we're going to offer them a job or not offer them a job. A lot of times after the interview, we may be doing some interviewing and not even have a job open at that time, just for our future reference. And then let's say 6 weeks down the road, and a job does become available that we think that person would be interested in. It just gives us a reference point to call that person back. But we always do get back with the individual, and we'll tell them, yes, we have a job available. We'd like you to start in a week or 2 weeks, or when it's convenient for you to start. Or else we'll call them and say, well, you're not fitted for this job. We'll keep your application on file. We'll get back with you in a few weeks if something should open up. And typically, many times, we do get back with that person again after that first interview, and we may want them to come in for another interview.
All right. How about as far as should they call you back? Should they call you, or should they write you a letter thanking you for the interview?
That's not really necessary. I haven't had that happen very often. I've had people call me and say thanks, but I've never, not to my recollection, I've ever gotten a letter back from someone thanking us for an interview.
All right.
But that's a nice touch.
Yeah, that's what I was always told when I was looking for a job, was you should thank the person for the interview. As far as Social Security, a lot of people are hesitant to go back to work once they've started collecting Social Security because they're afraid that their benefits are going to be taken away or reduced. I do have some statistics about that. A person who is 62 to 65 can earn up to $6,840 a year before their benefits are reduced. At that point, they lose $1 for every $2 that they earn. From age 65 to 70, a person can earn up to $9,360, and at that point, they begin to lose $1 for every $3 that they earn. And I believe that after age 70, the amount of money that the person can earn is unlimited. It will not affect their benefits. If a person is planning to go back to work on a part-time basis, are you willing to work around that? Are you willing to not require them to work so many hours that their benefits are going to be reduced?
Oh, definitely. I think you and I visited on this one other time. What we find a lot of seniors too is they don't want to be on such a rigorous schedule where they have to be here, or they have to do this, or they have to work X amount of hours a week. The hours worked depend on the individual. Some seniors we find will want to work 25, 30 hours a week. Some seniors we find only want to work 1 or 2 days a week. So we're real flexible that way. And we're flexible basically with our entire workforce insofar as that's concerned. If time off is needed, we find that seniors do a lot of traveling, whether they're going on 2-day vacation trips or bus trips or visiting their family out of town or whatever. That's all arranged, and we have no problem with that. We have if the senior comes in or the employee comes in and they want a job, and we offer them a position, and they wish to only work 10 or 15 hours a week, that's fine. That's fine. We try to work around their schedule as much as possible.
Okay. Do you think for the most part that employers are willing to do that?
I believe so, and I think it's more and more you have to do that today as the labor force continues to shrink. And it's becoming harder and harder to attract people into the workplace. It's not so much that you follow the employer's rules as far as the work schedule. The employer now more or less has to follow the employee's schedule.
Okay, all right. Just on an average, do you know like how many hours a week your average senior citizen works?
Well, right now we don't have as many senior citizens working for us as we would like to.
Okay.
Let me tell you that first. The ones that we do, it's probably about 15 hours a week.
About 15 hours. What kind of days or what time of day do they work then?
Typically, some of the seniors we have that are doing, let's say, food demonstrations are working Fridays and Saturdays and some Sundays. Those are approximately, on Friday, for example, from 1 to 5 or 1 to 6. Saturday maybe from 10 till 2, and Sunday maybe from 10 till 2 or 2 to 6. So they're short days, and if we can find more people that want to do that job, and we feel the seniors do that job exceptionally well, if we can find more people to do that job, the hours can be traded off amongst the seniors. So if one wants to work one weekend and have off the next one, that's fine. Or if one wants to work a Friday and a Sunday and have off the Saturday, maybe the other one can have a little flex time there between them.
All right. One thing that's important there, you mentioned the shifts are short, so that people are not on their feet for 8 hours a day.
Right.
If you've retired and you're not used to being on your feet, a long day is something that you might be hesitant to try to tackle. How about the jobs that they are doing? You mentioned food demonstrations. What other sorts of jobs do you?
Food demonstrations. One of the other ones is we'd like to have what we call an aisle director. Okay, and that would be to have the person in our store telling customers when they're walking through our store, if they have a question of where a particular product is, where they can go and find that product. Other jobs that we have, there may be a clerk in our bakery department waiting on customers there, or packaging product, packaging donuts, packaging buns, doing a whole host of, and everything that goes with that job. We feel that we could take a senior citizen and put them in any capacity, for the most part, in our store, and train that individual to do that job. Now, of course, there are some technical jobs that are in the store: meat cutting, bakers, floral designers. Those kind of people are skilled people, pharmacists, and of course you cannot train those people to do that job. But they're, as far as the stocking, produce clerk, a bakery clerk, a deli clerk, food demonstrator, bookkeeper, cashier, we feel that a senior could do those jobs just as well as anybody could with training.
All right, all right. What do you find that the benefits of re-entering the workforce are for a senior?
Well,
do you hear them talking during break why they wanted to come back to work, maybe?
Surprisingly, money is not the main motivator for a lot of seniors to come back into the workplace. The main motivator, we feel, for the senior to come back in the workplace is to get out and work with the public and see people and talk to people. They typically, we have found, they'll retire, they'll do everything they ever wanted to do, or said they were going to do when they retired. And like I think you and I had talked to this one other time. And they'll do that for a year or 2 years and say, well, there's only so many holes of golf I can play in a day's time or in a week's time, or there's only so much of this that I can do. And they find that they want to go back in the workplace, maybe earn a little money, but more have the social contact.
All right.
Okay, with others.
I believe the day that we came out to talk about the show, I was talking to one of your employees, and she was telling me that she had retired and her husband had retired, and they made each other crazy in the house together.
Okay.
So she sent him back to work part-time at one of the car dealerships, and then she came back to work for you part-time. She said that now her and her husband get along much better. I thought that was sort of interesting. Do you feel that it helps the seniors keep up with what's going on in the community if they're back to work today?
I think so, because they have more, like I said before, more social contact, more communication, and surprisingly the number of people that they had seen in the past when they were in the workplace or when they were out more in public, they run into a lot of people. As you know, we pass thousands and thousands and thousands of customers through our store in a week's time. And granted, if you're a resident of Muscatine, how many of those people you know is incredible, and to catch up on what their sons are doing or what their husband or wife is doing or where they went on vacation or what's going on in their neighborhood. It's amazing, and we find that, like I said before, the seniors are able to communicate better and carry a conversation out with these people much, much better. And I think they enjoy it. I really do.
Well, good. Good. Is there any other comments that you have about our topic here, I guess, as far as people going back to work or what to expect or?
What to expect, I guess, like it said before, the fear is there. If they can get rid of the fear, the application process is quite simple. I'm like, I guess, a lot of other employers in town. I would love to have more senior citizens coming into the workplace. The labor pool in Muscatine is not such that it's hard to find employees, and there are a lot of good quality employees, but we would like to have a better mix if we could.
Okay.
So we feel the seniors could offer us a lot more, not only for our business, but also to other employees in the store.
All right. Well, Gary, I'd like to thank you for being with us today. And I'm sure that if anybody has any questions or if they'd like to apply either at your store or someplace else, that you'd be glad to help them out and give them some pointers, things like that. So we'd like to thank everyone for watching today. And we hope that if you're thinking about going back to work and you've been a little bit intimidated, that you'll go out and try for the job that you'd like to have. Thank you.